Welcome back. Welcome back to the Working in PLM 4.0 show in sunny, steamy Las Vegas, Nevada. This is what goes on, stays here, etc. We're coming to you on a new slot. It's Wednesday. We're coming out now frequently, alternate weeks on Working PLM 4 in 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Eastern, 1700 British Summer Time, and 1800 Central European Time. Furthermore, for the first time, Brian Spellman is with me, joining us on the Working in PLM 4 show. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, good morning, Andrew. Yeah, it feels a little familiar, but different because this is the Working in PLM 4.0 show. And while you might be in Vegas and what stays there, stays there, but the show isn't actually in Vegas. So just want to warn you ahead of time. We go international on this show.
But you bet.
Product Lifecycle 4.0 is, well, on the show, we get to talk to a lot of people who are experts in this field, and we hear the term product lifecycle thrown around all over the place. But what does it really mean? So for us, we'd like to define product lifecycle as a series of processes and methodologies that help to deliver from the ideation to putting innovative best products and services into your hands. So PLM 4.0 is really about trying to bring together the industry 4.0 technologies of the digital thread, the digital continuity, the digital twin, the intelligent products, the integrated factories, smart service. I'm sure I forgot a couple buzzwords there. But
no, you checked every buzzword possible. Yes, alternate weeks, as long as we can pull in the experts, we're going to be asking product lifecycle implementers and engineers what they do in the PLM 4.0 world, and together, hopefully, we learn a thing or two. And so this week's guest, let's introduce you to Mladen Stosic.
Yeah, Mladen has recently joined us in Europe. He is one of our most experienced solution architects. He started out as a humble Dassault support engineer, where he learned the complexities of CATIA V5, started to learn all of these, and then after 9 years of working across various industries, graduated to a 3DEX solution architect in 2015.
Yep. And so for the last 7 years, he's been starting up and delivering some highly innovative products and 3DEXPERIENCE solutions across CAD and the entire product lifecycle. So let's get the show on the road. Everyone attending, please, any questions you've got, throw them into that comment section. Any comments, any thoughts, throw them into that section. Let's get going. Ready, set, go.
All right, welcome, Mladen. How's life over in Croatia today?
Hello, everyone. Fine, thank you. Hope you're doing well as well. How are you doing, guys?
Doing good. Still hot and steamy in Croatia. Still in the summertime over there, yeah?
Yeah, although it's end of the season, so we are getting more windy, more rain, and the temperature
cool
is
enough.
Not as high as no, it's not cool enough yet, but not as warm as it used to be, so it's good.
Got it. Got it. Good. Beautiful country. Need to get there. Had several trips. Sounds good. All right. So yeah, you bet. So today we want to learn about what you do, what you love about it, why you do it, the challenges, the solutions, and any advice that you can give along the way.
Yeah. So we'll dive in with the first question of what do you do?
Well, the shortest possible answer, I push people out of their comfort zone. We try to provide a better optimized business process. We make sure that people are able to do their daily tasks, and that's pretty much it.
Got it. Love the sound of pushing people out of their comfort zone. What do you actually mean by that?
Well, every company out there, if they're doing business, they have some kind of business process associated to it, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. So no matter how effective that business process is or ineffective, long, short, error prone or not, it gets the job done. They're doing it. So what we do, we approach from the outside, and as a PLM specialist and implementators, we are providing, let's say, an optimized business process. What that means that they have to leave their business process, leave their comfort zone, and they have to trust us that eventually we'll land them into more comfier one.
Got it.
Eventually.
Yep. So what drove you into the product life cycle? How did it happen? What were the kind of the steps that brought you in?
Well, as Brian already mentioned it, I started as a humble, and I like the sound of it, humble.
You weren't humble?
CATIA V5. Well, okay. If we're going to use that word, then let's keep it that way. As I started as a CATIA V5 technical support, and back then most of our clients were introducing CATIA V5. They were quite often short of engineers, so whenever the need would arise, a couple of us will join their R&D offices, and I will spend a couple of months, half a year on a project, working with them, being their shoes, wearing their shoes, feeling how does it feel to be actually not just a technical support, but actually R&D engineer. So at those companies where he's from, coaches, oil rigs, tier 1 or tier 2 automotive suppliers. So small batches, large serial production, you name it. I got
oil rigs. So you say oil rigs?
Yeah, actually,
really?
a polar developer, actually. Yeah, one. So I said,
interesting.
Yeah.
And how? And how
don't expect me to. Don't expect me to design a polar rig out of my hands. It was very interesting experience, but it was one of the kind.
Got it.
Yeah.
You were using CATIA?
No, not CATIA.
Okay.
That was the other
some other
yeah.
product that remains nameless. I understand. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah. Anyway, you got the feeling, you experience all the problems, like, what's the last revision, and, is this in work or stuff like that, So pretty much somehow back then we were talking about PDM and like that. Now we're talking PLM, we're talking 3DEXPERIENCE and, platform, and this is what we're talking now. But back then we actually started with PDM, and then it just evolved gradually, with the technology and with the processes and everything.
So with PDM and with the companies you were working with, and you just mentioned briefly they were all having problems. What are the typical problems you're talking about?
Yeah, I think classic stuff. Where is my last revision? Where is his last revision or her last revision? Is this really last revision, or like last revision on Friday, really last revision on Friday? You could have seen all those folders named like that. Is this in work, or is this ready to release? And if I'm reviewing stuff, how am I supposed to communicate the change, and who is exactly responsible for that particular part? If I'm having an issue, are there any pictures where they are? Maybe I'm having an Excel spreadsheet, and we are managing or improvising it in Excel spreadsheet, having all that stuff written there. Kind of a Excel spreadsheet came back then as a kind of a false prophet kind of a thing. You can do, or you have a feeling you can do everything with it, but in the end we were quite improvising, actually. I mean, for that time being it was okay, but nowadays it's no longer okay.
Yeah, for sure. So the obvious question is, what were the challenges with all of that?
Well, challenges with how to manage it. Okay, how am I supposed to know that this is the how am I supposed to assure that every time I'm looking at something and I'm sending something to production, that is actually ready to go to production? That is actually the last revision, that I didn't accidentally save it to somewhere else place. I didn't accidentally save it or run over someone else's work, because back then we were also trying to do parallel design, parallel development, but it was a bit tricky back then. So those were the challenges. I mean, classic stuff. Where is the last revision? Is this last revision? Who's responsible, and stuff like that.
So I get the feeling you're saying that people sometimes you know, as you mentioned earlier, don't really like to be pushed outside of their comfort zone, which can lead
No.
itself to the idea that a lot of times maybe the stakeholders are not really interested in the bigger picture. Uh, did you see this as something that happened?
Yeah, that's interesting situation once you face it. You may find yourself in the position that's actually the correct address is the high manager, you know, maybe on C level, because they are the one responsible of managing the companies, of setting the KPIs, of balancing those KPIs, making sure that the particular KPIs wouldn't overweight everyone else and put, you know, if you put an emphasis on let's say on a release date and you forcing that KPI over everything else, you may find yourself in a position that R&D department will try to release the drawings no matter what, you know, even if they're maybe not 100% correct. Maybe they haven't had enough time to review it, you know, correctly, but all that really doesn't matter for them. They just need to release them by that date, and what happens after that, it's not their problem, you know, it's someone else other problem, you know. And those someone else is probably sitting in a, you know, workshop in a production, and will probably experience late change, and as we all know it's the most expensive type of change. So, you know, when that happens, your time to develop, time to produce grows, costs, everything grows, errors happens. Nobody likes that, but they, for those people in R&D, that's not their problem. You know, they only have to, you know,
Yep.
change the drawing, fix the error, and that's it. They're done. You know, they're quicker to release. They're even quicker to fix the error, and then how will someone else manage that in production? You know, tough luck.
Yep. And so what do you feel about kind of improvisation versus standardization? What's your thoughts around that?
Well, for someone who spent quite a lot of time in R&D, you know, trying to find a solution to the problem, to develop new stuff, improvisation, or you know, is a welcome thing. You have to be creative. You have to find maybe out of the, you have to think out of the box, and you know, creativity. And to my experience, creativity and improvisation goes hand in hand, and you know, that's beneficial in R&D when you're developing new stuff, especially early on. But if you try to promote that kind of behavior, that kind of corporate culture in the business processes, oh, that will lead, not might, that will lead to the problems, especially if everybody is doing it on their own particular way. Everyone is improvising. There you wanna you know, push the standardized way, and to some of those very creative people, you know, who are who improvising on a daily basis, that might be very, very challenging to accept those. And this is one of the source of the problems actually when you're implementing this kind of solutions.
And then if you take that, I mean, into the world of kind of complex, large assembly manufacturing, aerospace and defense, transport, mobility, etc., ecosystems. So obviously you've got this big value chain, this big ecosystem that's designing, engineering, manufacturing. How do you handle that communication? How do you handle that standardization versus improvisation in that environment?
Well, it's a difficult one, especially if the rest of the ecosystem at a significantly lower level than the client, than the OEM. Then it actually presents significant gap, because you cannot implement the optimal solution, because those who have to connect to that system probably won't be able to do it. You know, if your supplier IT, you know, level is very low, and let's say that email is the way they communicate, they cannot communicate, at least it's not foreseeable future, if they won't be able to upgrade their IT skills, you have a problem. And how to, because the OEM won't be able to communicate effectively with those kinds of suppliers. So in those kind of situations, you have to rely on some kind of leverage coming from the OEM actually. And you know, they have to push on their suppliers, they have to insist, they have to, it's like, you know, it's ecosystem. You cannot just take something out of it, or you can just put something into it without some repercussions. So it's also a process, which is a part of the implementation process as well, all this PLM kind of a stuff. And you want them to collaborate with you on that, and you need to collaborate with them on that as well, because if there is a discrepancy in your view and their view, it's not going to work, at least not as efficiently as it should.
So overall, what have you discovered are the best tips and tricks for really helping to overcome these gaps in the ecosystem?
These gaps in ecosystem, or just especially in those gaps? So
supplier integration.
Supplier integration. So you have to communicate stuff with everyone clearly, and I mean, it's like pointing the obvious. Of course, you have to communicate stuff, but really, that's, if you don't do that, you're not gonna make things happen. You want the OEM to be on your side and to clearly communicate the vision, what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to try to achieve, because then they will back you up, and they will force their suppliers to actually follow them on that path, on that vision, to go there where you want. So
Sounds like in a little bit it goes back to what you said earlier of having to get people to trust you, and basically, I guess, win their hearts in the process and let them realize that you're trying to help, even if it may seem painful currently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is one of the issues, or one of the challenges, let's put it that way, is that you're actually trying to change people the way they're doing their job. And they might approach it from that, keep it simple, stupid, and if it's not broken, don't fix it. But you have to make them trust you, because it's their job that's online, and they have to trust you that they'll be able to do it efficiently, and let's say with less errors, in a better fashion. Otherwise, they might find themselves in a position where in like 2 years time, or even less, or 3 years time, they won't have enough time to to move from that comfort zone, because it will be already too late. So yeah, it's quite a lot of stuff about winning the hearts and minds of people.
Yep, got it. So if I was a young IT or engineer guy, and I wanted to get involved in being a solution architect, what would be your advice to those people wanting to do your job? What would be some of the little tips that you would give them?
Well, some of the little tips. When the new fellow join my team, or we start working together, of course I will help them. But the message I will try to communicate with them is that they have to be proactive. They have to be stubborn. I'll be there to guide them, to push them in direction. I will, but I won't be able to hold them by the hand every step on their way. They have to be able to find their answers to because there is a jungle and you have to find the right trees, and I'll help you. But if you hit the wall, I'm expecting you to find a ladder yourself. If it's anyhow possible to go around the wall, don't break your head banging into the wall without any success. That kind of stuff. So you have to be stubborn, because it's difficult to find the answer, to go through all the possibilities, all the documentations, to have all those discussions and stuff. But that's just the nature of the beast. It's just the way it is.
Brian, does that mean you're stubborn as well as a solution architect?
Yeah, just being stubborn. And it's interesting though, because I kind of like the phrase that I put together there when you said be stubborn, be proactive, was be stubbornly proactive. Because you usually think when you hear stubborn that you're just a wall, but if you're doing this in a way that's helping people and being proactive about it, it makes a lot of sense. So I like that kind of idea. Stubbornly proactive could be a new catchphrase.
How to be an SA. Sounds good. Sounds good. I think it rings it to, you've got to be pretty relentless. You can't just back down. You can't just stop and say, okay, it isn't going to work. You've got to persevere. You've got to be super resourceful. I think what you were also saying there, Mladen, you're not on your own, but you're on your own. I mean, you are leading the charge architecturally. You've got to be super resourceful and not necessarily wait for people to give you the solution. You've got to go out and find it yourself and find different ways to skin a cat, etc.
Yeah, it's you know, there are times where you want to find this, where you are actually between, you know, kind of between a hammer and anvil, except there are not just one hammer and one anvil. There are, you know, various softwares, operating systems, solution, customer, suppliers, your colleagues, various stakeholders, and they all keep beating you from, you know, from every possible direction. So, like you just said, you know, you just must not give up.
You bet. So what, come on, let's let it all hang out here. So what mistakes have you made that have made you a better solution architect?
Okay, let's assume that that those mistakes made me a better solution architect. I would like to believe that that's what happened. One that, you know, kind of sticks out is maybe when I was actually focusing too much on technical aspects of the problem, you know, not putting attention to human to personal side, to what I just said, you know, what we just mentioned on a couple of occasions, that you have to make people believe you, you know, this is their job, this is what they're doing for paying their bills. So it's not big deal, and you know, you just approach them out to the blue skies. Maybe they see you before once, twice, maybe this is the first time they see you, and now you're gonna tell them, now you're telling them, you know, hey guys, what you're doing is fine, but there is a better way of doing stuff. And of course, you know, there are all kind of situations. It can be relatively easy, it can be, you know, difficult. They can try to adopt, you know, new tools, but trying to use it as the old one, that's quite a big problem, because it's not going to work like that, you know. They can just try to stick inside their comfort zone for far too long, you know, desperately trying not to give up, to push, to put, you know, to put out from the existing technology, existing process as much as they can, stretching that to the breaking point, you know, kind of a way, you know. Let's imagine that they're using, you know, carrier pigeons to communicate stuff, and you're approaching to them like, guys, carrier pigeons are, you know, they're nice, but you know, nowadays we have emails, we have cellular phones, it's so much better. And if they say yes, great, we're going to use the carrier pigeon, we're going to use the emails, then it's great. But if they you know, decide, if they say no, we don't need the emails, we're going to keep using the carrier pigeons, we only need to find faster one, let's see who has the faster carrier pigeons, you're looking into trouble. You find yourself in a difficult positions, because you know, eventually they might even find the faster one, but the benefit they will eventually gain from those will not solve their problems, because you know, obsolete technology is obsolete technology for a reason, you know.
So other than training carrier pigeons or training faster carrier pigeons, what are your current projects you're working on now?
Yeah, well, when I'm not training carrier pigeons, yes, there is
best ones.
Yeah. I'm currently on extended enterprise with the JLR. It's, you know, all those quite large numbers of suppliers all contributing to the production of various vehicles JLR is producing. We are in charge of achieving that all those suppliers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, with various different integration levels, various different IT levels or IT skills, that all of them will be able to efficiently communicate and collaborate with the JLR in the development of existing and new projects. That's what we're doing.
God. And so what's been exciting for you so far about that whole supplier integration, and how's that pushing you into new areas?
Well, you know, how's it pushing me to new areas? Every project is kind of a new stuff because there are new people, new problems and stuff. But this one is particularly interesting because, you know, as with pretty much everything today, whenever you have a complex product, the majority of that product is produced, or at least those parts are produced outside of the company, or some systems are even developed outside of the company. And I think in this case, I think we are talking around 80% of parts and systems are actually being developed outside. Not exactly sure, but I think it's around that number. So the huge complexity and importance of that, because you have to be able to work together. You have to, you know, achieve that so that the JLR can make their products effectively, you know, at the right target, right date, right quality level, at a right price. So it's complex, it's huge, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this whole courier pigeon thing a little bit, which is not necessarily a term I thought we are going to dive into on our PLM discussion. But with the courier pigeons, you know, you're talking a little bit about companies or people who are using, let's say, old tools that aren't really adequate for the job, or trying to use the new tools in the same way as the old tools. So what are you really seeing in the industry as far as what's happening with people needing faster courier pigeons or needing to figure out the correct way to use the tools that they have?
Well, you know, recently I had a situation where I had a client who was planning to adopt a new process based on the technologies which are pretty much, you know, 30 years old plus. You know, so the newest technology was like 30 years old. And I was trying to explain them that, you know, in IT sector, 30 years, that's like ancient history. I mean, nobody here is having mobile phone, you know, older than a couple of years, at least, you know, wouldn't like to use that. But for some reason, they wanted to use 30 years old technologies for the business process. And, you know, as I said, I started as a CATIA V5 technical support. So maybe I'm taking all that 3D stuff, you know, as granted, like for sure. I mean, everyone's using 3D, but apparently not everyone's still using 3D. They're stretching the 2D drawings, you know, way over their limit. And while we have nowadays some stuff in 3D that can be so much more effective. You know, on the other hand, we have some clients who are dropped down some of the 2D drawings, like assembly drawings and stuff. They're no longer using it. They are having the assembly instructions derived directly from 3D and stuff like that. But you know, when you find those we need faster carrier pigeons kind of clients, then it gets difficult to explaining them to talk. But that's part of the job. That's nature of the beast, you know. Something you have to deal with that.
You got it. Got it. Mladen, that's great. Hey, you've been thoroughly running through a lot of stuff there, including carrier pigeons, as we've said. Thanks for joining us. Brian, you want to wrap
You're
it
welcome.
up?
Yeah, Mladen, thanks for your time, and we appreciate having you on the show. And yeah, just thanks for giving us 30 minutes of your evening.
You bet.
Oh no, thank you very much for your, you know, for calling me on the show at the first place.
Yeah,
Right.
so that will say bye to Mladen. So bye, Mladen.
Thanks, Mladen. Appreciate
Bye,
it.
everyone.
Appreciate it. Good. So everyone, next week we are going back from working PLM today to talking PLM 4.0 next week. We are talking MBSE, but not. We're actually looking next week at requirements gathering, running test cases far more efficiently, and actually speeding up the whole design process, looking at removing errors that have been caused by natural language documentation, etc. We are moving into that MBSE world and the periphery areas, how to speed up design. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Brian, thanks. You're coming to join us next week as well.
MBSE is the M stands for maybe. So you say you're MBSE, but not. So maybe SC. I don't know. It's a bad joke, but there we go. Yeah.
Maybe based systems engineering. You got it.
And on that note, we'll see you all next week. And I guess I'm going to go try to find some courier pigeons or something. So
Sounds like a plan.
thanks everybody for
Enjoy.
joining us.
Thanks everyone. See you next week.